Due to feeling like I had reached a dead end with my work by the seaside, I decided to change my research project. The changing project has reignited my enthusiasm and motivation into the second half of the MA. I was struggling for direction and motivation in the latter part of the Services and Strategies module, and I think this was reflected in my portfolio submission. I wanted to be able to shoot the same place repeatedly, and somewhere closer to home because of the COVID restrictions. Travelling to the seaside 40 miles away wasn't always possible, so my aim was to be able to repeatedly shoot the same place and people and evolve a body of work into FMP through continuity of space, environment and people. Riegler said, to make meaningful comparisons possible, we have to maintain some element of continuity. Continuity may reside in the fact that the photographs were of the same scene, or because they trace the experience of the same or similar participants, or because they followed the development of a particular function, activity, or process over time. With this new project, I feel a lot closer to it both personally, physically, and mentally. I am photographing my community, the people I live near, people I see regularly but have never previously interacted with, so I'm developing relationships and this continuity in my work. My practice will be revisiting and reshooting the same place, people and landscapes. As this portrait style of photography is new to me and something I haven't previously done, my starting point was my intent and what I was trying to say about the landscape and the community's interactions with it and the connections they have with the space. I was specifically looking at leisure, well-being and heritage, and through these themes I hope to tell the stories about the subjects, their identity and lives. When Dowd Bay photographed Harlem in the 1970s, he said, "You have to know enough to show up and see deeply and clearly as you can once you get there." My work for this project could not be further removed from Bay's work capturing the community of Harlem in the 1970s, but they have things in common in terms of process and intent. Bay's work was early in his career and his first foray into integrating with a community over time to capture people. His work in this project moved from a more impromptu style, like my own seaside work, to a more formal portrait style like I have for this project. Bay is concerned with photographing everyday people to show a depth to them, so their personality and individuality resonate from the image. You get a real sense of community, not just visually but also atmospherically. With this new project, I'm able to be a recognisable part of the community through consistently being in the place to talk and see the local vernacular clearly. One of my main inspirations for the change in direction was speaking to Henry Iden in the summer about many of his projects, including Hill People. I like the diversity of subjects in this series that explore the people who participate in outdoor activities from the angle of fashion. Iden said, "The project intends to examine how clothes and posture serve as a communication function by decoding the messages in the wardrobe of one subculture, a group of people who identify themselves as hikers or outdoor enthusiasts." My project shares many of these themes of the outdoors, the middle class, and examines identity, but is focused on my own doorstep, where my subjective viewpoint comes into focus through my connection with the people. I didn't think it would be the most exciting or groundbreaking project, but the more I have researched theoretically and practically, the more I realise it's also about culture, diversity, politics and gender. As these themes are brought by the subjects, they tell their story to me and I try to capture it. With this, the project has become more meaningful by examining these cultural codes and encoding them for the audience, who will then decode the subject's identity and see their story. That is the main aim. I then started to consider how I could connect the portraits with the environment to create this narrative about community, heritage, well-being and identity. Sequencing is something that I have worked on a great deal and has been a challenge. Kohlberg discusses the editing process. The evolution often results in some early photographs not fitting in any longer. That great picture that early on defined so much what the project was going to be all about, it might just have to go. Letting go of important photographs that simply do not fit into the edit is one of the hardest struggles. In previous modules, I have been guilty of choosing my favourite images that maybe do not fit in the sequences or communicate the meaning and intent as much as the other pictures. In this project, I have been deeply concerned about painting this bigger picture. I've been able to shoot more than previous, as I've already mentioned, but also I've been able to work in terms of creating this bigger picture. But it is a blessing and a curse because I get so many photographs to work with because I'm shooting so often. David Campany said, "Words do many things for photographs, but in general they are used to oversee and direct them, the way parents oversee wayward children." Combining text and image is something I have not done before, and I am very concerned with communicating the intent and the meaning of the project to my audience. I decided to use quotes from the conversations that I had with subjects when I photographed them. I believe this will help direct the viewer rather than feel too forced or over-explanatory than, say, columns of text would. These quotes from the people that I photographed will be in 50% of the portfolio, as I only decided to do this halfway through the project. I was mainly inspired through the interaction with James here. He told me that this year had been the worst of his life. I think this is quite a powerful and profound statement from an 80-year-old man who must have been through a lot in his life. I think a quote like this from James would really anchor the image with more meaning and tell his story of his current predicament in the year of COVID. Van Gelder and Westgeese also discuss this combination of image and text. A photograph, when it stands on its own, potentially has multi-layered meanings. Combined with text or text fragments, various possible meanings contained in a photograph can be orientated to divergent discursive directions. The image alone is to show or suggest something about the subject's identity and have multi-layered meanings about their identity. But will it tell the reader anything about the subject's connection with the environment and why they are there? I'd hope the images alone would suggest something about this subject's story and have a multi-layered meaning about their identity. This is why adding quotes from my interactions with them will be important to tell this connection between the subject and their connection with the environment and what it means to them. I see the work at the end of FMP as an exhibition on the canal and a book combining text with image. There are spaces purchased by people on the canal embankment, and I think displaying the work here in this environment is a natural combination because it again physically links the people to the space. My own experience is important as I am exploring the place I live, my relationship with it, and my relationships with the people that I encounter. Thank you for listening.